social selling to me sort of encapsulates what I thought I was always doing, albeit without the aid of technology. And really what it does for me now is social selling is more the advent of the incorporation of technology into what I guess I've always been doing in terms of building trusted relationships, or growing, I should say, trusted relationships with people.
Welcome to the Making Sales Social podcast, featuring the top voices in sales and marketing. Join hosts Bryn Tillman and Bill McCormick as they discuss the best tips and strategies they are teaching their clients so you can leverage them for your own virtual and social selling. Here are your hosts, Bryn Tillman and Bill McCormick.
Welcome to Making Sales Social. I'm Bill McCormick.
I'm Bryn Tillman.
And Bryn, who's joining us today?
We have Patrick Boucousis, the sales natural. I am so excited to have him. You know, we just recently met. He connected with me with all these really nice words about our content, really, about how authentic it is. And I looked at his profile. I'm like, this is someone I want to know. So we hopped on a call and I thought, this is someone our audience should know. He is a high performance sales coach and trainer that really focuses really on like the trust based. And when and even in his profile, he talks about authentic, right? Totally aligned with what we believe. Patrick, welcome to the show. Tell everyone a little bit about you.
Thank you, Bryn, and thank you, Bill. Yeah, well, I coined the expression sales natural, although I wonder if that was the best term to use, because a branding expert told me a little while ago, he said, Pat, he said, anyone under 50 doesn't know what a natural is. So if you didn't see the Kevin Costner film. So I guess it implied authenticity, ethicality, transparency, and that's really the focus. It's a case of gaining trust really quickly, and people wanting to do business with you, irregardless of the product or the service, because selling at the end of the day is about people, not about products and services. And it's creating that connection and doing that quickly by letting your authenticity show and being of value, being of value quickly.
I love that. So that's music to our ears for
Absolutely.
Sure. But before we get started, we always ask Patrick, every guest, the same first question. What does making sales social mean to you?
Okay, well, you can see I've got a few gray hairs, so I kind of came to social fairly late in life, you could say. And I've been in sales my entire working life. In fact, it's all I wanted to do when I was a kid. My dad was a salesperson, so I didn't want to be a fighter pilot or a fireman. I always wanted to be a salesperson. So I guess social selling to me sort of encapsulates what I thought I was always doing, albeit without the aid of technology. And really what it does for me now is social selling is more the advent of the incorporation of technology into what I guess I've always been doing in terms of building trusted relationships, or growing, I should say, trusted relationships with people.
That's a perfect answer, really. It's what we've always been doing on digital, right?
Yeah.
And what you've always been doing is this value selling, this authentic selling. So we are so excited to learn and go deeper into kind of your techniques and your strategies and how the things that you teach your clients to do that really creates that trust. So my first question to you, and it's pretty much, converting what you've taught in the real world to digital, is how would you recommend someone show up in a trust-based selling mentality on LinkedIn or for social selling?
Yeah, that's a really good question. If you were to define trust, the definition of trust I really like was by a guy called David Maister. He coined the expression trusted advisor, and he came up with the trust equation. If you could imagine an equation, and on the top line, it's credibility plus reliability plus transparency. Basically, telling the truth, doing what you say you'll do, and being open and transparent. They grow trust. And under the line is self-interest. Self-interest diminishes trust. So I guess as a salesperson, if you're going to show up, the challenge for salespeople, is not to grow trust, is to not lose it. Mm-hmm. And as soon as we show up, oftentimes we start talking about our products, self-interest, ourselves, self-interest, our company, self-interest. We're full of self-interest. And that just undermines trust from the get-go. So I guess my recommendation is don't talk about yourself, get onto the buyer's page, learn all about the buyer, live in their world, and you will grow trust. Just show that you care and you will grow trust.
I love that. One of the things that we talk about all the time is detach from what the prospect is worth to you and attach to what you're worth to the prospect. So it sounds like that's what you're saying.
And be of value. Now, here's the thing, to really be of value, you need to have trust first, because you need to learn from the buyer what value is, because value is like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder, right? You can't, I guess I'm bemused by expressions like add value, create value, propose value. My perception is you can't do that. Value is received. It can't be given. We sell products and services. Buyers will get value from them or from you. That's their judgment. And so if you're trusted, then you can have the conversations that enable you to determine, what do you really value? What is important to you? Forget the needs. Forget it's the outcomes they want. What are the results?
Right. So that mind shift, that's great, because I always say, hey, make sure you're providing value, but maybe I need to switch that around. And so what are some of the things you're teaching your clients to try to arrive at that value, to understand that better from the client's point of view?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess rather than providers of value, we are potential sources of value. And it's the buyer that will ultimately judge if that's going to be the case. So we need to have the conversation, understand what their perceptions of value are. So imagine why people show up at work. We tend to think, well, it's for the paycheck. That's true. But then there's recognition, acknowledgement, advancement, risk avoidance, absence of stress. Those are the things that are of value to people. We tend to talk about needs in a business sense, but needs in the sense, satisfying needs, they're like inputs. What people want are the outputs. What's the result? What am I going to get if I satisfy the need? And I guess what I say is that needs are why we buy, value is what we buy. And that's what we really want to focus on. Salespeople tend to focus on needs, but they're pretty generic. If you describe a need, it doesn't really provide a great insight into what you want. I mean, talk about a car, a house, a suit. You can describe it, but how would anyone know what you wanted? If instead you turn around and say, well, how do you want to feel if you walk around in that suit? Tell me about your lifestyle. What's it going to be like living in that house? Then you get an understanding of the perception of value. Does that make sense?
I love that. I want to kind of go one wider, I think, on that, not necessarily deeper, but there are different times that we're providing value. And in social selling, sometimes there is, I need to provide value. So I'll back up. There are 3 ways to deliver value on social. There's one to many, right? So we share something on our news feed and lots of people see it. There's one to few, where I have a message specifically for CEOs in the advertising industry. And then I tailor a message that goes out to a lot of people. That's a particular persona. And then there's one-to-one, where we get really personal. Those are all different times to provide value. We actually talk a lot about social listening, like even before we can ask them questions, we can identify what are they consuming, what's important to them, what are some of their priorities, and then we can share that. What are some things that we can do? First, the one-to-many. How do you recommend we find out what matters to the many and get that message out to them?
That's an interesting question, Brittany. It's one I wrestle with myself, because, of course, in a marketing sense, what you want to do, the riches are in the niches, as they say. It's a case of understanding who do you want to appeal to? Who could you potentially be of value to? And as I was saying before, it's really their call rather than your call, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess it's a case of putting yourself out there. I guess one of the things that makes me cringe in LinkedIn is so much of the self-promotional material, given what I've said. Picture of our new product, this or new that, or we've just done this. I really don't care. If, on the other hand, you tell me about someone that's accomplishing something, albeit as a result of your product, don't tell me about your product. Tell me about what they're accomplishing. I can join the dots. I can figure out that obviously they're using your product to do that. But we tend to be in your face, that we say, hey, look at us, we've done this for them. And, so I guess the way I try to appeal is just to talk about results, talk about outcomes on the one hand, or alternatively talk about the problem, because people more frequently relate to their problem than they do to the solutions. Of course, we think in terms of our problems.
It's interesting. We recently did a webinar where we shifted. Normally we're education value, and people love it. But we did a little shift and we played with it a little, and we did, this is what's broken. this is what's broken. And people were like, I was blown away. And I think because they related to what they were doing wrong. So before we taught what was right, they were like, so the value was in talking about what was broken. So
that's how I came across you, Bryn, right? You're on that, it was a Phil Jerbishak video cast. And I reached out because I was really impressed. It was just sheer value, right? What you were just speaking my language, and it was just so refreshing, as I said to you, that it was great. That's how it should be, I can join the dots and know you're smart and do all this stuff. You don't have to tell me that. It's just by virtue of demonstrating your knowledge and useful tips to me, I get that you're obviously a person to come talk to if I need some help to do that. That's the bit I think where most selling and marketing goes wrong. They don't credit people with the ability to join the dots.
Yeah. I think we try to market to the least common denominator,
Yes.
and so what ends up happening is we simplify it so much to the point that we lose people's interest. And
you think?
I think, yeah, I think we do, or overshare and we overcomplicate it. Yeah. I think there's a middle ground to be played, because we either simplify it to the point where people are, or we give them so much, like, we regurgitate so much information, it just flies over their head.
So is it we or we general sales people?
Looking to up your LinkedIn game? The Social Sales Link team has you covered with our LinkedIn Sales Accelerator, a guided social selling program that includes training, coaching, and so much more. Visit socialsaleslink.com/in for more details. Again, that's socialsaleslink.com/in.
Be general. I'm saying,
like, oh no.
That's why I much prefer the term enable to help. I mean, we're really in the business of enabling or empowering people. There was a study done, I heard about it many years ago. It was done by PwC, and I've tried to find the study, but they did a study into the difference in credibility between something you find out for yourself and something you get told. And apparently, something you learn for yourself is 6 times more powerful or credible than something you get told. Makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, if a vendor tells you something, well, they would say that, wouldn't they? Whereas if you find that out by some other means, it's far more credible. And so I think one of the environments we need to set up as sellers is give people the ability to discover and enable that discovery in terms of how we might be able to help it, which is what you did, Bryn, in your talks. I can join the dots, as I said before, in terms of how you might be able to help me.
So, on our website, we have a Benjamin Franklin quote that says, "Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn." And so, that is, I love how aligned we are in some of those.
Yes. Reminds me of when I ended up with water on the knee, and I went to the doctor, and he said, and I said, "What happens now?" He says, "Well, we've got a saying in the medical profession, first you see one, then you watch one, then you do one." He said, "I've watched one."
Oh, so you're the first do one.
I'll find someone else to do it then. So.
Yeah. That's hysterical.
Yeah, I remember going to the barber once, and the girl, it was her first haircut ever on a live person. Well, I said, "Do it on me, because you're not going to make a mistake. If you make a mistake, I'll just shave my head. It'll all be good." So here in the States, there was a Gallup just came out and said recently that salespeople on the trust meter are just above politicians, and so we don't have a great reputation for being trustworthy. What are some things that you suggest to your clients, those that you're coaching, to raise that trust level up and to be seen as more trustworthy?
Well, we often talk about building trust. Well, the first thing is you can't build trust. Okay, trust grows. It's like a hothouse. You create an environment in which trust grows. Trust is the feeling that occurs in another person in terms of their perception of you. I can't get to you and say, "I'm going to make you trust me." That's not going to happen. But in fact, just by virtue of saying that, you're not going to trust me. Yeah. So it's this telling the truth, showing up, being reliable, and being transparent. Now, here's the thing. There's a concept of the trust default theory. Have you heard of that? what it says is that we human beings are hardwired to trust. We default to trust. That's our natural state. When you think about it, to build communities, we had to trust one another. Otherwise, we wouldn't have survived as a species, right? So Tim Levine at the University of Alabama has done a lot of research onto that, and it's interesting. So our default state is to trust. That's one of the reasons why we're really quite gullible. We have a lot of cognitive biases, as people like Daniel Kahneman pointed out in his studies. So the thing is, though, we tend to undermine it, though. We tend to lose it. Mm-hmm. And so salespeople go overboard trying to grow it. And just in doing that, you actually diminish it. Mm-hmm. You talk about how credible I am and look at all the stuff that we've done for everyone else, hopefully building trust, but you're undermining it. The tricky thing about this, though, is the impact on people that you're seeking to trust is they're not aware it's going on. This is something going on in their lizard brain. They're processing this, and they decide that they like to trust you or not. They don't suddenly say, all right, now I trust you. It's a feeling that emerges. And the problem is that with salespeople, we operate too much on the conscious level, where us humans, 98% of the time we're on autopilot. And the buyer's on autopilot. We're on autopilot. We need to think about what's going on, the impression that we're creating. And I guess a lot of my training is around that. It's subtle in terms of impacting people. Just do the right thing, show you care, they will trust you.
Yeah,
interesting.
I heard Craig Groeschel says that people will say trust is earned and I'm getting it wrong, but what he comes down to is that trust is given and mistrust is earned. And so, mistrust is given and trust is earned, I think is the flip side of that. And so yes. I think if we come at that level and understand that, and we start there, and I said I was on a podcast earlier, we just have to treat people like they're humans and stop looking at them like a number on our CRM or prospects, or because when we look at them as opportunities and we come in and they disappoint us and they don't go with us, they don't choose us, we actually have bad feelings towards them. And yes. we give that off. And it's not good for us. It's not good for us as salespeople to do that, because
as humans, it's not good.
Well, if you think about the traditional sales process, right? We talk about prospects as targets. They don't see themselves as that. And then we talk about a sales cycle, and the sales cycle is needs discovery, proposal, demonstration. They're all stuff that we do to the buyer. Instead of talking about a buyer journey, which is as a guide taking the buyer on a journey. Now, here's the thing. That doesn't fit so well in our CRM systems, because we've got these set points in our CRM, and we increment our pipeline or a percentage chance at each gate that you go through, that you're like a bunch of sheep, we're putting you through these sets of gates. Mm-hmm. That's not how the buyer's perception is. And I suppose the sales process that I teach is understanding where the buyer's mind is at in terms of, okay, we've grown trust. Now we're starting to collaborate. Now we're starting to explore their value gaps and what they don't have. Now we're starting to cooperate and invent, working on a solution with them, all in their language, nothing at all about our product. And I think that's part of the challenge. I heard a beautiful expression the other day, and I think I mentioned it to you when we first spoke, Bryn. At the end of the day, they want to trust you to help them. They want to trust you to help them make a decision they don't trust themselves to make.
Oh, say that again. I don't know if we talked about that, but that's really resonating.
The buyer wants to trust you to help them make a decision they don't trust themselves to make.
Interesting. And so trust, again, that come in twice into that, right? So trust is so critical. So talk about the things you need to show up. You need to tell the truth. You need to
be transparent and open.
Be transparent and open. So if you haven't done those three things, they're not going to choose you.
No. So, and I've worked across a number of industries, a whole range of products and services. And I can tell you now, the product or service makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. It just boils down to you as an individual. If they trust you, they'll buy from you. And of course, by the way, it works both ways. It also enables you to very quickly qualify. 50% of the sales that salespeople pursue, they shouldn't have been in anyway. They weren't going to win them. Mm-hmm. And you can find out very quickly, is this person going to trust me? And as a result, am I going to be able to meet their perceptions of value? No, well, I'm out of here, and you save so much time, qualify much more quickly.
So I just want to share, kind of bring this back to digital and social for a second. Yep. When you connect and pitch with to someone, you are breaking trust.
Yes.
Right? That's a bait and switch. You are breaking trust. The very first interaction you have with them is breaking trust. When someone engages with you and you immediately say, we help companies like you, you're breaking trust. It's literally, it's going to devastate your pipeline.
Absolutely.
Where you think what you're doing is building pipeline, you're breaking pipeline. Yeah. And when someone loses trust in you, you're done. It's really hard to earn that back.
Absolutely. Now, and that's the interesting thing is, even when you do the pitch, when they ask you to come in and give us a pitch, got a number of examples of some of the guys I'm working with where the prospect has asked them to come in and give us a pitch, and they've immediately started asking questions of the prospect and said, I'm not going to give you a pitch. I'm clueless. I don't know whether I can help you or not. Can we just have a conversation? They looked stunned, and that's where they went. And they ended up totally engaged. They didn't miss the pitch. They were just going to entertain the vendor by giving him the space. Don't take it. Say, look, I don't need it. I don't want to do a pitch. Let's have a conversation about you.
One of the things that we talk about when we run that first call is, and even if they're ready for the pitch, is it okay if I ask you a few questions? So then when I talk about what we do, it's actually relevant to you?
Yeah.
And they go, oh, okay, right.
It's respecting their time. And just to your earlier point, when we do that connect and pitch, and we not only do they lose trust in us, but especially doing on LinkedIn, they lose trust in our company because they can see our company, they see who it is we work for. So it's on a much higher level. So if you're a sales leader that's listening to this and your reps, you've got them doing this connect and pitch, understand it's hurting the trust that people have in your company also. I think that's very, very important.
The bots are also, so we're getting messages. For example, Bill, I'd have you share this, but you got a message that talked about your pest, that you're in pest control because they scraped content from your profile. Wow. I got a message that said, we looked at your profile and recognized that you need some help with LinkedIn. It was a bot, right? Like there, or it looks like you're not leveraging LinkedIn to its fullest. That's the message they sent me, and it's a bot, right? And some people are capitalizing their name so they can see what's being scraped because they're inundated with all these pitches. All of that, it's not a net neutral if they don't respond. They've lost trust in you. And I can't scream that from the rooftops, louder.
Yeah. Don't get me started on bots. And it's like chat, I'm sitting there on a chat, we have an issue with something, with your telecommunications provider or something with your internet, you're there on a chat. I'm thinking, I remember this 50 years ago, we had teletype machines. We used to sort of send teletype messages backwards and forwards. Here we are, we've got the phone and everything. And for crying out gently, we've virtually gone back to Morse code, sending teletype messages to one another. It's kind of nuts. We've thrown the baby out with the bathwater here.
Move it to Zoom, from LinkedIn to Zoom. LinkedIn to
Zoom. Get face to face and go. That's the only way you're going to grow trust. You're not going to grow trust over a chat box.
And that's probably a whole other episode that maybe we can have you back on to talk about automation and trust and automation and the breaking of the trust cycle. There's the title of that next one.
I think there's a master class in there.
Yeah, that would be good. We can just definitely discuss that. But unfortunately, we are out of time. This flew by. So thank you so much for sharing, Patrick. If you could just tell everyone how they can connect with you and find out more about you and what you do.
Okay, thank you, Brent. Thank you. So my website is thesalesnatural.com, as it sounds, one word. You can find me on LinkedIn. You should find me also as The Sales Natural. My name's probably a bit of a mouthful. Patrick Boucousis, that's B for Bob, Oucousis. And by all means, email me at any time, patrick@thesalesnatural.com. And I'm also offering some free seats I'm offering a free version of my online training program. So if you want to learn about natural selling techniques, authenticity, how to grow trust quickly, then by all means, reach out. This is not a bait and switch. It's a genuine, it's a paid program at the moment, but I'm offering a free version of it. just bringing that to market, just making that available within the next few weeks. So by all means, please reach out, patrick@thesalesnatural.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. It was so good. And for all of our listeners, thanks once again for being with us. And don't forget this week, as you're out and about, to make your sales social. We'll see you next time, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening, and join us again for more special guest instructors bringing you marketing, sales training, and social selling strategies that will set you apart. Don't forget to subscribe to get the latest episodes from the Making Sales Social podcast. Leave a review down below. Tell us what you think, what you learned, and what you want to hear from us next. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Play. Visit our website, socialsaleslink.com, for more information.